muted. As usual, forget my mute button. So, welcome everyone to the LIBERcast episode 83. It has been going so fast since the beginning, and I have the chance to have a beautiful audience and always the constructive comments and questions and people. I, I wanted to get in people involved in this because it's so important that people really understand the rhetorics and the doctrines from the occult and morality and natural law. So thank you for everyone to joining now. I will check on the background your questions and comments. So just before we're starting, I'm gonna put this one up. We are part of the One Great Work Network.com. It's a gathering of minds that are concentrated on spirituality, occult traditions, uh, uh, morality, and then some people have like more a news stand on the thing. So there's hundreds of hours of stuff that you can go there. There's French people actually or who are on the site, so I'm gonna point them out. So we have Dom Tremblay from Quebec, and then we have me, and then Dorian Greens, that she's actually a French woman who resides on in Taiwan. She's awesome. Go to look to their works. So I'm not gonna waste any minutes to bring up Mark Passio um, to the conversation. So here we go.
Fred,
Thank you,
thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here today.
thank you, Mark, for being there and partaking in the LiberCast. Um, so can you, for the people who don't know you, just quickly go over your bio and then where you started and then where are you now?
Sure. My background is from a traditional Italian American South Philadelphia family that was Roman Catholic, and I basically, had a pretty normal childhood, but was sort of indoctrinated into traditional religious beliefs when it comes to the church and traditional forms of Christianity. And when I, hit my early teen years, I started asking a lot of philosophical questions that I felt that my parents, teachers, and clergy didn't have sufficient answers for. That turned into a lot of angst and anger for me. And so I sought
Hmm.
out the exact opposite of religion and religious schools of thought and teaching. And I sought the occult. I sought the world of occultism, particularly dark occultism and Satanism. I went out and devoured writings of dark occultism, particularly the works of Anton LaVey, the then high priest of the Church of Satan, the organization known as the Church of Satan. And I started espousing Satanism in my writings, and I wrote for different small magazines back then called fanzines, which were usually associated with the underground music circuit in my area. For people who were, a little bit older and knew about, how the underground music circuit went back then, they may be familiar with fanzines. I wrote philosophical columns, articles for fanzines like that, associated with heavy music, generally the heavy metal and death metal and black metal underground community, and espoused Satanism and occultism in my writings, particularly the LaVeyan style or flavor of Satanism. And then I formed a band that got signed and had a major release of an album, and we espoused Satanism in the writings of our lyrics. I was the main lyricist of the band, of course, and the lead vocalist. And my writings and music and lyrics got garnered the attention of the Church of Satan, and in particular Anton LaVey himself. And LaVey actually reached out to me, contacted me through the addresses and contacts that we would put in our music, or I would put in magazines, fanzines for fans to write to you, or other bands to write to you. LaVey got in touch with me and asked me if I would accept an appointment to a priesthood in the Church of Satan. because he recognized my communication skills and liked my writing and the how I was putting out the message of LaVeyan styled Satanism through my music. And I accepted the priesthood as an honor back then. He also asked me if I wanted to head a grotto, which is the Church of Satan's coven. That's the type of coven. It will be the associate of a coven, or the equivalent of a coven in like witchcraft, and they call them grottos. They're groups that they meet in, and I denied a grotto leadership role because I did not want the responsibility to handle a group dynamic back then like that. I didn't feel I didn't want that responsibility, and I also looked at Satanism as a highly personalized thing, and didn't want to enter that kind of a group dynamic where I was responsible for heading an entire grotto. So I turned that down, but accepted the priesthood. And again, people really should hear what I'm saying. Not high priest, priesthood. Again, there's simple ranking systems within an organization like the Church of Satan. There's member, priest, then there's magister and magistra, which are like directors of priests and priestesses, and then above them there's a ruling council called the Council of Nine. That's like almost like a senate or a congress of sorts, that make executive decisions, and then hand them down to the magisters or magistras, that then hand those decisions down to the priest class, and then finally to the membership. And at the very top above the Council of Nine is the high priest, and this was then of course, the founder of the Church of Satan and the high priest at the time, Anton LaVey. So I did accept, however, some contacts from the Church of Satan to attend and go to and participate in meetings and rituals in my tri-state area. And I did that for a couple of years. And really, what I saw on the other side of that really made me open my eyes and wake up to the reality of this world, because power brokers from every institutional walk of life were gathered in those grottos, in those meetings and rituals that I had attended then. And it showed me that this was not just people working individually to try to learn the type of deep psychology that occultism contains, to benefit themselves. They were working very tightly as a close knit, worldwide, hierarchical network together to increase their own worldly power and put everybody else under their thumb, into a form of slavery by which they would be the masters and the rest of the population would be their slaves, under their thrall, under their mind control, their spell, if you will. And they would basically rule them as a king would rule their subjects, or a master would rule their slaves. They would put them into a condition by which they would actually desire their slavery, that they would never rebel against it, that they would be so enthralled that they would actually never rebel. And when I recognized this is what was really going on behind the scenes in Satanism and dark occultism in general, I was not so psychopathic that I wanted to continue that agenda and that endeavor. I did not sign up for human slavery. I signed up to learn about how occultism works. I wanted to increase my own ability to do things in my life, and get a leg up over my fellow man, so to speak, but not enslave human beings. And when I realized that this whole agenda was actually about human enslavement, that's when I said I had a moral problem with it. And a lot of people think, well, announcing that, they're going to come after you, they're going to try to assassinate you, something like that. And it's nothing of the kind. It was a very quick, well, if you don't want to be involved in what we're doing, then there's the door, boy, and don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. It was not any kind of trying to keep me there against my will, because I describe it to people as they'll only do that to the people who, quote unquote, know where the bodies are buried. Unless you have participated in their worldly crimes and you are a high enough member of their echelon in their hierarchical network, they're not interested in forcing you to stay with them. And I had not participated in anything like that. I was involved from an ideological perspective only, propagating their ideology to other people through communication. They recognized those skill sets in me. They wanted to hone and grow those skill sets and then utilize those skill sets, as they do with all of their membership. They want to use you as a tool to advance their agenda. And my conscience, upon realizing their worldwide agenda, and this was not just the Church of Satan. I just want to say that because a lot of people think I'm only talking about one organization. The Church of Satan is a very low level group within the hierarchy of worldwide satanic networks that interoperate together, and involve political groups, financial groups, banking, military, law enforcement, on and on, entertainment, education, every institutionalized walk of life. The Church of Satan is only one little puzzle piece within this multi-tentacled octopus, and they are not the head of it. They are one of the arms of it, one of the hands or fingers of it, however you want to look at it. And it goes way beyond the low level that I even witnessed it at. But even that was enough to really get a picture behind the scenes, to pull back the curtain and see what was going on behind the ostensible corridors of power and into where the real network of power goes. And I got a clear enough picture of it to have it really shake me out of my slumber as a human being and realize who is really directing and controlling this planet. And I've been trying to blow the whistle on that ever since, explain to people what the ideology of Satanism really is versus what they have been brainwashed and conditioned to believe it is from a Hollywoodized and religious, a perspective of religiosity. And religion and Hollywood are just doing a number on people's minds regarding what Satanism is. They're not it's not very difficult to get through to people what the satanic mindset and ideology is, which is pure egotism, me thinking. I don't care about anybody else but me. I wake up all day and all I'm really concerned with is my own crap and maybe the couple of people that are very close to me in my life, and that's all I am concerned about. And screw everybody else, screw what's going on in the world, screw everybody's collective freedom. I'm only concerned with what I can get out of life. Then that tends to lead into the second tenet, which is moral relativism. I don't really care about right and wrong. Right is whatever's good for me, wrong is whatever's bad for me. And that's a totally subjective thing based on my whims, my preferences, my likes and dislikes, my perceptions. Then, it descends further down into, really dark, negative and satanic ways of thinking about the world, like moral relativism. It's like social Darwinism, which is a
Mhm.
tenet, and that's like there should be a hierarchy of control. So slavery is perfectly okay as long as the right people are leading humanity, as long as the right people are the masters, and we should have a hierarchical pecking order like there may be in the animal kingdom and in animal behavior. This is extending animal behavior into the human social strata and
Mhm.
believing that behavior, like the rulership of the most ruthless and the most cunning, is perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable, and that should be the way we structure society. And then from there, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to the fourth tenet, which is eugenics. Once you have an enshrined rulership, a ruling body, um, ruling, elite of humanity, then that ruling class should just essentially be able to decide who lives and who dies, who
Mhm.
propagates their genes into the human gene pool into the future, and who is prevented from doing that, who cannot pass on their characteristics and their mindset and their philosophy, etc. We're gonna act. The masters are going to act as the culling force of the human herd. And that is the basic mindset and ideology of what Satanism really is from a purely ideological perspective and a
Mhm.
religious perspective. It's a way of being and acting in the world and thinking of oneself in the world and thinking of one's relationship in the wider body of humanity. It doesn't really have anything whatsoever to do with worshiping externalized Christian deities that were invented by religion and or conjuration of demons and summonings and things like that. I'm not saying that certain Satanists don't believe in those things. There are styled forms of Satanism that do contain beliefs like that, but that's not the form of Satanism that really runs the world. The form of Satanism that runs the world is a worldview that is taken by the masters of the world. It's propagated to other people who are used as their tools in their worldwide agenda and in their worldwide hierarchical network of power. And it's what's leading humanity. That mindset is what's leading humanity into abject slavery.
Yes, and I just covered that, by the way, on the French side. And I think people don't realize, because they have, like you said, this entertainment, uh, Hollywood like paint over it, and it's
Yep.
not that at all. And I try to make them realize that most people are in this mindset. When we're looking into the West civilization, where almost everyone is Satanist,
Yeah.
ideological Satanist, but they don't know it. So yeah,
Picture
that's a good point.
if you went out on a street corner and you did a social experiment and you just asked everybody that passed by a certain street intersection, could you please tell me what the very first belief of Satanism is? And they would tell you, well, I worship the devil. I worship the Christian devil. I worship the entity or deity that I call Satan. And that is not the first tenet or belief of Satanism. The very first tenet is the self is God. That's what anybody who really knows what Satanism is would say. The very first tenet of Satanism is the self is God. There's no God but the self. That would be the very first thing. And they mean the egotistical self. They're not talking about the higher self. They're not talking about like the entire body of consciousness in the universe. They're talking about me, 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 me. That's what Satanism is ultimately all about. And if you gauge the consciousness of the world based on that very first tenet, nothing really matters but me. Like you said, it's almost everybody. It's not a question of who is a Satanist. It's a
Hmm.
question of who is not a Satanist, who has not been inculcated into that type of thinking, you know?
Yeah, and I want to bring up something before we forget. I'm gonna bring up the funnel conference.
Cool.
Yeah, so there's a big conference that is made by Freedom Under Natural Law, and it's Will Keller. I don't know if he has anyone else on the spot, but don't miss it. It's free. There's like a bunch of awesome people who's gonna like talk about interesting stuff, crucial stuff. So go there and go encourage it. It's completely free. So I mean, afterward, I maybe it's gonna you can you're gonna be able to watch it later, but I mean, the all the people that's gonna there, it's like it's a win-win situation there. So let's talk. I wanted to bring you more and talk a little bit about what spirituality is not, because
Ver-
I had to confront that a lot during my great work and on the French side. There seems to be have a lot of resistance.
I'll tell you what,
And yes.
that's a phenomenal question. Okay. I wish more people would ask that one because um, so many people believe that spirituality is something almost completely polar opposite to what true spirituality is. And I would say if we're going to look at spirituality from this perspective, the negative or apophatic perspective, we're going to begin to define it by saying it definitely is not this. Right. So, like, natural law is definitely not Darwin's theories on macrobiological evolution, survival of the fittest, law of the jungle. You got to throw all those notions out when you talk about what natural law really is. You start by saying, well, it's definitely not these things. Okay. This whole idea of the natural order as a dog eat dog world, that's not natural law. So I like the idea of doing this with general spirituality. And most people don't do this. Most people, try to immediately define it from the positive perspective. So I like even the, you know, question of define this from the apophatic perspective by talking about what it is not, right? So Spirituality, first and foremost, is not refusing to look at the negative and bad. If anything, we could define spirituality by saying that it is the acceptance of looking at the things that are all wrong, negative, and bad in not only in the external reality that we live in, but in the inner world. If we refuse to do that first and foremost, then there's nothing spiritual about what follows at all. We are here to analyze and learn about what not to do. Okay, we are getting the experience and knowledge of how to master the inner world of our psyche, and then eventually understanding how to align ourselves with the forces and laws of nature so that we can not quote master them, but utilize them to provide our best growing experience and evolution of our species into the future. So, the very first thing that you're going to immediately set yourself up for abject failure in that regard is if you refuse to look at what is negative, bad, and wrong with, again, as I said, not only the world at large, but most certainly and most importantly, at the things that are going wrong in the inner world of the human psyche within the individual. And that means having the courage to look at those negative aspects of ourselves and learn from them and learn why they're there, learn why we don't want to confront them, learn what we must do to confront them, the shadow work that we have to do with ourselves to improve ourselves. And none of that process can begin. The process of improvement cannot even begin to start if one is unwilling to look at the negative. Can an alcoholic conquer their alcoholism and the behaviors that have led to that disease without first looking at the negative causal factors that have led them to want to drink in the first place? A drug addict, the same thing. Somebody who is exhibiting horrible, immoral behaviors or condoning horrible, immoral behaviors, how can one even begin to set those behaviors down if they don't want to look at the negative things within themselves that have led them to want to do those things or support and condone those things? Right? So, the very first thing about spirituality, of what it is not, it is absolutely not the refusal to look at and confront the negative. Spirituality is one of its first tenets must be one must confront that which one is uncomfortable with and doesn't like, especially within the self. That has to come first. That has to come before you even start really, truly understanding what's really going on in the world. You got to turn the vision inward and say, what are my issues and problems? What's going on within me that I don't like? Am I steadily trying to improve those things? Am I working on the inner world to clean that up, to make that sane, to improve upon the things that I have been failing at? Number one, first and foremost. Then you move on to look at, let me see how all the machinations of our world work, all the techniques of mind control and mental influencing for the negative. And then what can we do about it? Then what's the behavior going to be? Right? Once you understand that, that's not the end of it. Then you have to say, what are you going to do to help with that situation? And you're not going to be in a good position to help if you haven't looked at the negative. If you can't explain to people what's wrong, how are you going to explain to people what needs to be improved and in what aspects it needs to be improved and how you're going to improve it? Right? And then if you haven't done that internal shadow work, you're going to be facing all of these fears, all of these negative views of the self, all of these perceived inadequacies. It's just going to act as excuses to say, well, I can't do that. That's not for me to do. I don't want to take the time or the energy or the attention or the resources that's going to be required for me to get into that field of endeavor. I'm just going to kick back and let somebody else handle it. And that's the world that we have. That's what we have going on right now. We have a bunch of people who want to claim to be spiritual, who want to claim to have any knowledge of self or spirit, that they have not done the internal cleanup work, the internal shadow work, and the internal sanitizing work to work within their own psyche, their own raw material that exists within themselves and their psychological makeup, to clean that world up first, to the extent that they have the confidence, the assuredness to go into the great work and say, I've cleaned my own house to the extent that I can now go and help to influence other people for the better by creating content, by putting this philosophy of objective morality and natural law out into the world, and doing that fearlessly, doing that, and even if it's not fearlessly, doing it by conquering fear, even though it's present, by pushing through the fear that is present. You don't have to become completely fearless. You have to clean up the internal world. Courage is right action in spite of fear. That's what courage really is. Courage expresses itself by doing what one knows is the requirement to do, that one knows is necessary and that one should do. Right action. Even if one is afraid, even if your voice shakes, even if your hands shake, and even if all that fear is still present internally, you don't have to knock the fear completely out. You have to gain enough control internally to work through the fear, even though it's still present. Right. And most people aren't doing that spiritual work. They don't even know that that's what the spiritual work is to do. They're told just quieting the mind is spirituality. Meditation's a big part of it, but meditation for what purpose? You know, yoga, people believe, oh, I'm just going to go get my body in shape with yoga. Do you think yoga is just an exercise technique? As I was talking about on my show, yoga is a method of presence to find out what your dharmic work is to do and learn how to quiet the mind and body and prepare the body so that you can go out and do that necessary work. It's learning your purpose. It's learning your mission. That's the whole part of what real yoga is. That's why I described my seminar, How to Become the True Media, as yogic
Mhm.
practice. It really is. People think yoga is just these forms and body movements. That's one form of yoga. That's not what actual yoga as an actual practice of spirituality is. So, see, people have all of these false notions of spirituality because of the New Age movement. When
Mhm.
I was in Satanism, one of the first things that was, I mean, they were obviously, when I was involved in the 90s in Satanism, these guys and women were working on really building the New Age movement up into this colossal worldwide religion that would totally deceive the masses of people about what spirituality was. I mean, that this was their main focus back then, right? They moved on to even bigger things, through from 9/11 to, the whole COVID pandemic nonsense, and getting people to believe in all this stuff and trying to take away people's bodily autonomy and force them into taking poisonous substances or they'll lose their jobs. I mean, they've done a whole number of psyops on people since. But
Mhm.
back when I was involved, one of the main agendas was we are going to propagate so much false spirituality into the world through publishing houses that we control and through forms of media that we control, that we are going to have people believing that snow is black. That is what they wanted to go out and do back in that time period. Okay. We're going to have people believing that absolute false spirituality is where they really need to be. And we're going to make them work as hard as they can to get to that place, which is going to keep them imprisoned. It's going to keep them imprisoned mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, most of all. And let me tell you something. These Satanists, these dark occultists, these dark Luciferians, these mind controllers, these social engineers, put whatever label you want on it, they do not mess around. They're not talking a game and then not going out and executing that game. They talk that game, they plot that game amongst themselves, and then they go out and they put their willpower into it. They put 100% of their attention and focus behind it, and they get that agenda accomplished in the real world. That's how they operate. It's like one mind. Forget it being a worldwide network of millions of people. It's like they're operating of one accord, of one mind, one consciousness, all on the same page, like one being wanting to do one thing. Literally, that's how tightly knit they are. They're literally that tightly knit. And I hear people all the time diminishing the power of these people, insisting Oh, no, they're not as powerful as you say they are. Bullshit. You aren't in the occult. You aren't in Satanism. I'm obviously not talking about you, Fred, or even your listeners. I'm talking about people in general who want to insist that they know more about these people's mindset than somebody who is a priest within their organizations. I was clergy within these people's ranks. And I'm telling you, they act as if it is one being with one mind, all on the same page until that agenda is accomplished. That's why they're so successful, and that's why they're kicking our ass all over the place. It's like Mike Tyson just beating up on some chump, on some amateur chump. That's literally what it's like. If forget even an amateur chump, it's like Mike Tyson beating up on a little kid, who never even learned to box, who has no business in a ring. That's the lopsided imbalance that we really currently find ourselves in. And I don't say that to discourage people. You have to realize where we're at if you're going to make any progress forward out of that negative situation. And that's spirituality. Spirituality is the full willingness to accept the situation as it is first. And
Hmm.
most people won't do that. I tell people they have people almost perfectly under mind control. It's almost a perfected mind control state. And I'll have people say to me, "Oh, no way could they be that powerful. No way could it be in that much of a deep negative condition." Why? Why can't it be? Why? Because you're uncomfortable with that? Because you don't want it to be that way? So this is the mindset in the occult world that they call dreaming, right? And this is what spirituality is not. Spirituality is not to dream the world is the way you wish it to be. Because the world currently isn't the way any of us really truly wish it to be. If you think that it is, I'd say you're on really bad drugs and you're highly delusional. Okay? Because the world right now is a prison. And that's not a negative worldview. That's an accurate, truthful statement based on the knowledge of where we really are in consciousness. And if we're going to change it out of that, you better start looking at the world from a truthful perspective of the here and now, where it really is, instead of pie in the sky dreaming and seeing the world through rose colored glasses just because you want to believe it's in a better state than it really is in. See, spirituality is telling the truth first and foremost, right? It's not imagining scenarios that aren't the way things really are just because you're comfortable with imagining those scenarios and in not accepting the world as it really is. So, see, this is the first occult tenet. And I'm talking about the occult from a positive point of view now, from the knowledge that it can really impart of who we are and how we really should be operating in the world. Okay. So the first tenet is stop lying to yourself. That's number one. That's the first step of real spirituality and real initiation into a cosmic adult mindset, right? So what spirituality is not is continuing to lie to yourself. That's would be one of the first tenets. Stop lying to yourself, right? If you want to come into true spirituality, first and foremost, stop lying to yourself. Stop telling yourself things that are not true. Stop believing in illusion. The dream state, that's part two. Stop dreaming. Stop imagining the world is some magical way that you want to believe it to be just because that makes you feel good and comfortable and gives you a warm, cozy feeling. Spirituality is not dreaming and seeing the world through rose colored glasses. It's full acceptance of reality as it currently is in the here and now, in the current moment on the earth, not in some other dimension, not in some pie in the sky vision. Be here now and accept the current state, see it for what it is, and fully cognize it as it is in the here, right here on the earth plane, and in the now, right here in the present moment. And just that one thing is so difficult for most people to do. Number one, the reason that it's so difficult, the first reason is they don't have enough data. They don't have enough information regarding what's truly really going on the earth plane. They have not aggregated that grammar, which is the very first step of the trivium process. You got to gather the grammar. You got to gather the eclectic variety of data from an eclectic variety of sources. You can't know a little bit about a little bit. You can't know a little bit even about just everything. You got to have general knowledge. You have to have a lot of general knowledge about a lot of different seemingly disparate things. You have to read, you have to analyze, you have to comb through it, you have to weed out logical inconsistencies, you have to have enough knowledge. So here's another thing that spirituality is not. Spirituality is not ignorance of worldly knowledge. A lot of people in the so-called spiritual circles say, I don't need all of that knowledge. That knowledge isn't spiritual. Absolute nonsense and bullshit. Okay? To be ignorant is to be enslaved. See, knowledge isn't power unto itself, but knowledge is a means to power. When knowledge is applied properly in the world, that's when one has power to affect change. Why don't all of the people who say they want freedom have the power to manifest that state on earth? And the number one reason is they don't have enough knowledge about how to truly change the situation. They don't have enough knowledge about self. They don't have enough knowledge about the psyche. They don't have enough knowledge about what creates real change and what are the actual requirements for real change. They don't have enough knowledge of objective morality and natural law. They don't have enough knowledge of even the skill sets that are required to go and reach out to people in the modern world through communication technology and help the world to change by influencing people's minds for the better by teaching them objective morality and natural law. That's all ignorance. Ignorance can only lead to the absence of spirituality. It can only lead to the degradation of the being and the degradation of the whole civilization and eventually into slavery and eventually extinction if it continues. So ignorance is absolutely non-spiritual. It's the antithesis of spirituality. Okay. So you got to learn how to think. You got to learn how to use the trivium to gather that knowledge. That's the third occult principle, is learn how to think. And a big part of people's inability to learn those methods, learn those techniques, learn what they really have to look at is they can't be present fully. They haven't learned mental discipline. True spirituality isn't being scattered and all over the place. It's being able to hone oneself into a focused laser beam and then execute real world action. And in order to do that, you have to bring your mind into full present moment awareness. You can't be somewhere else while you're trying to learn something. You can't be somewhere else while you're trying to learn a new skill set. You have to reel in all of the attention that may be scattered or being competed for elsewhere by a million things that they'll dangle before us and say, look at this, pay attention to this over here. You know, we've all experienced that. See, this is part of being in the present moment, true present moment awareness versus not learning the mental discipline to bring one's attention and consciousness into full present moment awareness, right? So that's the fourth tenet is live in the present moment, be in the present moment, exist in the present moment. And so many people cannot do that, right? They haven't learned the techniques for doing that. A big technique for doing that is transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation will actually teach someone, if they learn it properly and they learn the real techniques of TM, it's bringing your mind into a state of absence of thought, being able to empty the chatter box, the complete chattering of thoughts that just saying, pay attention to me, hear this. And you got to say, no, absolutely not. There's a wall here. I'm erecting a wall. There will be nothing except what I want in there. And what I want in there is I'm going to learn this today. And I'm going to be that thing until I learn. I'm going to become it. Forget learning it. I'm going to become the process of learning that thing. That's going to be my identity, right? So few people in the world have that kind of mental focus. And they don't even understand that's occultism. That's why these people are beating us mercilessly.
Mhm.
And they're going to continue to beat us mercilessly because they have that discipline. When I was in a room with these people, I tell people this in the freedom movement all the time, and they detest me for saying it, and I'm going to say it, and I'll continue to say it. When I was in the room with these Satanists, I felt like I was in a room not only of equals, but betters. And I've never been in that situation before or since. In any human endeavor, in any human society and any human interaction, when I was with the Satanists, when I was with the dark Luciferians, the dark occultists, the social engineers, the mind controllers of our world, they were the most intelligent, the most driven, the most focused, the most skillful, the most present people that I've ever been in a room with. It was almost like a gift, quite frankly. And I hate to even speak of it that way, right? It makes them seem like they're too good of people when they're actually psychopathic lunatics, right? But these skill sets, oh, they have them in spades. They have them. They possess them. Okay. They have mastered those aspects of the self to do evil. Picture there being 1 million of me, only totally driven toward evil and slavery. Could you picture if there was 1 million of me totally driven toward good and the liberation of humanity? Imagine there being 1 million of me and totally driven toward the end of, toward the goal and bringing about human slavery in the world. That it would be done like that, and it is. It is. They have done it. It's not something coming in the future. It's past tense. They already have accomplished that, and we have to get out of that situation, right? So they've mastered these techniques. They've mastered those occult principles, those occult dictums. They take them very seriously. This is their religion. And guess what? It doesn't mean that those dictates, those dictums, if you will, those tenets are bad things. The tenets of Satanism, yes, are quite bad things, but the tenets of general occultic principles are not bad. It is stop lying to yourself. Stop. They don't lie to themselves. They lie to other people. Okay. But they're not lying to themselves. They know the truth about the world. Okay. And they live within it. They live within the confines of that. They're not lying to themselves. They're giving other people all kinds of stupid nonsense to believe in. And that they look at it like, hey, that's on you. If you bought the lie, you deserve it. You don't deserve the truth. That is their mindset. And, quite frankly, I can see something in that. I can see some truth in that. Like they're basically saying if you're too stupid to recognize the difference between truth and total bullshit, do you deserve anything better than what you have? And I don't know if I can say the people do, right? It's a
Mhm.
sad, sad, sad situation. But in a way, we are bringing all of this garbage down upon ourselves. It's not them doing it to us. All we have to do is say, we're not playing your game anymore. We're not going to believe your bullshit anymore. We're going to tell ourselves the truth. We're going to live in the real world. And we're going to learn the things that are the requirements for getting out of this slavery. And it would be over. It would be over quickly, too. Not in 100,000 years, not in 10,000, not in even in a couple hundred years. It would be over quickly, far more quickly than anybody realizes is possible. So that the tenet number one, stop lying to yourself. Number two, in general occultism, stop dreaming. That's imagining the world to be some other way than it is. This is real spirituality. It's the opposite of these things is what spirituality is not. You want to continue to lie to yourself? That's not spirituality. You want to continue to dream and live in a dream state, in this cozy, warm, fuzzy state that you don't believe the world's as bad as it really is? That's not spirituality, right? Not really knowing mental discipline and how to think, that's not spirituality. Not knowing the trivium, that's not spirituality. Just believing everything is a matter of faith and there's no actual truth discovery methodology to get to
Mhm.
the correct answer, that's not spirituality. And not living in the present moment, that's tenet number four. Being scattered all over the place, not being able to focus your attention in and exercise discipline to really learn something or learn a task or learn a skill set, that's not spirituality. And then the fifth one is take care of the physical body. Treat the body as the temple of consciousness that it is, because you're going to need it. Like activate and care for the physical body, right? Don't let yourself get wildly out of shape and let yourself go. Exercise, keep the mind in shape, keep the body in shape. You're going to need the physical aspect. It's going to be required. This is not something that should be aesthetically shunned. That's not spirituality. Okay. Ascetic behavior of just beating up on the flesh and saying the flesh is evil, and going into all these like hermetic, like, consciousnesses of, I'm going to just shun the physical, right? That's not spiritual. That's false spirituality. The
Hmm.
body is important. The processes of the body is important. If the body wasn't important, you wouldn't be in one. Okay? That wouldn't be what we come to the earth to experience, physicality and learning and growth of how to care for a vehicle of consciousness, which the body is while we're in it. Like, it's not to say totally identify with the body and the flesh either. Okay? You have to understand that the spirit and the body are one. The spirit and matter are one. They're not separate things. This is the other thing spirituality is not. Spirituality is not saying the spirit is all and screw the flesh and screw what happens here. There's nothing spiritual about that. There's nothing spiritual saying don't identify and get involved in what happens here on earth and just worry about some hereafter or some other dimension or some other state of mind. There's nothing spiritual in that. You are basically saying I don't care if evil runs amok and takes over the world and future generations have to live in evil and future generations of children and great and grandchildren and great grandchildren are left a world of pure evil run by psychopathic lunatics. How is that spiritual? There's nothing spiritual in that at all. And lastly, spirituality is certainly not the belief in authority. And so many people who say, "Oh, I'm a spiritual person. Who are you going to go out and vote for?" "Oh, I'm going to go and vote Democrat." "Oh, I'm spiritual. I'm going to go and vote out Republican. I believe in Jesus or I believe in this religion." All of this stuff is nonsense. You're spiritual and yet you believe certain people have the right to enslave other people? You believe certain people have the right to force their way of being and thinking onto other people? That there's nothing spiritual in the belief in authority. There's nothing spiritual in the belief that somehow government is morally legitimate and you're going to condone that. And you're going to go out and participate in all of that stuff. There is nothing spiritual in that. It's the complete polar opposite and antithesis of real spirituality. Real spirituality is being truly present, really understanding what's going on inside of you, really truly understanding the truth of what's going on in the world around us, and not participating in evil, not condoning the evil of the belief in authority and government that comes with it and the slavery that it's generating, not condoning it and not participating in it. That's true spirituality. From a base foundational point of view, you could build a lot on top of that. But without that foundation, you're not building anything. There's nothing truly spiritual built on top of that. And that's what I would say spirituality is most certainly not versus what it really is.
And I mean, in your work, you put an emphasis on the care aspect, the principle of care. And I think all that you said can be resumed in this. How much do you care?
That's right.
I
See,
mean, these
that
people, these people have the dark hair. I
they
mean,
care.
yes,
Boy,
they
do
still
the
care.
the Satanists care. And I mean,
Mhm.
they care about what they are doing. They care enough to get it done. That's what I've called in my work, as you said, dark care. They have this. They certainly don't not have it. They absolutely have like a real deep aspect of caring enough about what they're going to do to then not just talk about it, not just think about it, go out into the world and do it. And then they go and do it. That's why they accomplish what they're doing because they have the principle of care in hand. They know the principle of care. They know that whether you're going to do good or whether you're going to do evil, you have to care enough to get those things done. And you know what the universe is going to respect and say? Whoever cared about getting their thing done more, that's who's going to get their thing done. That's who's going to win. The universe is not going to step in and go, "Oh, wait a minute, these lunatics cared more than the allegedly good people," wrap it in quotes, wrap the word quote, good and maybe even the word people in quotes, okay? And the universe is not going to say, "Oh, well, the good people, they cared maybe a little bit, but they didn't really care enough to get what they wanted the world to be done and put it into effect, into manifested reality. But the evil people, they really cared enough and they did all the things that were necessary to put their vision of the world into physical manifestation." What do you think the universe is going to do? The universe is going to step and go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on, hold on. We're going to stop the people who actually exerted the care and willpower to do the thing that they said that they were going to do. And we're just going to say, no, we're not going to allow that to happen because it was bad." The universe doesn't work like that. The universe is going to give to you the results that you created. And those people created the result that they wanted to see. And the allegedly good people didn't create the results that they wanted to see. So the universe is going to respect whoever cared more. And it's going to give to them what they wanted to bring into physical manifestation because they cared enough to make it happen. That's how things really work, ladies and gentlemen. No angels are sitting there with a clipboard going, "Oh, how much evil's going on in the world?" And wait. Oh, they cared about it more, but I can't let that happen because these people say that they're good and they want freedom or they want good things. It doesn't work that way. You learn nothing if some externalized force steps in and takes responsibility for you. That's why we're here, to learn what we have to do, to learn what the requirements are to change this condition of humanity that we're in called slavery and get it done. Not to just pay it lip service and say we want it and then not do the things that are the requirements for achieving it. There's nothing spiritual in looking at the world from the perspective of, I'm just going to pay lip service to something and then expect somebody else to get it done for me. That's not how it works. We have to have true care. We have to care enough to make it happen. And do you know what I tell people? The world remains the way that it is because not enough people care enough to change it for the better. I'm sorry, but that is the truth of the matter eternally. It will never change. It will never be anything other than that. Until enough people care enough to make it change, the world will not manifestly, magically change on its own. It doesn't work that way. And if you ask people, what are you doing? How much skin do you have in the game? What have you done? What have your efforts been? Do you realize that this isn't going to meet the requirements? Do you realize this isn't going to be good enough? And their answer will come back, I don't care. That's the best that I can do. Well, guess what? You got to care more. You got to develop more skills. You got to get more people involved. You got to inspire more people to do more. And you have to care enough to get that done. Then things will change for the better. Right now, the answer is most people don't care enough to bring the thing that they say that they want into physical manifestation in the world. And the answer of all of it is put it on a t-shirt. I may make a t-shirt with this on it. I don't care is a prison for us all. And to not care enough is a prison for us all. It's not just caring, it's caring enough to bring the vision that you have for the future into physical manifestation by meeting the requirements that are necessary to make that condition happen in the real world.
I mean, you have this way of explaining things, and I mean, for the people who are not familiar with Mark's work, I suggest everyone to go back on the what on thisishappenings.com and start from the podcast number one, because I think it's more there's more explanation there, and as Mark says, it's a an aggregate of knowledge that it goes step by step, and I suggest everyone to go and start there, because the rabbit hole is going deep. And I mean, there's so much problem with the culture today, and the solipsistic stance that it's getting, on both atheists and scientists, and scientism and spirituality. I mean, I stumble upon these people all the time.
Oh, yeah.
These people who
There's a
says
lot
that
of
the truth
deception out
doesn't
there. Yeah.
exist
Yep.
and reality doesn't matter,
Yep.
and don't do
Imagine.
anything, you know.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy.
They believe action is meaningless instead of action being everything. Action is everything. That's the word karma in the ancient Indus Valley languages means action. It means action. You're going to get back the action that you put out into the universe. Look at all the action people are putting out into the universe. How much of it is evil? How much is the condoning of evil? How much is the cooperation of it is cooperation with evil? How much it is tacit acceptance of evil? Almost all human action is that, versus how much of it is resistance to evil? How much of it is putting out true knowledge of self, true knowledge of spirit, true knowledge of morality, true knowledge of natural law, and influencing people's behavior to change for the better. That's right action. And how few people are doing that worldwide. A handful of people on earth are doing that as their main objective, making that what they've put the majority of their eggs in that basket, and they're making that their main goal. And it's not good enough. It's not going to be enough of an effort to bring the result that we say we want, which is the destruction of slavery and bringing about true freedom in the human manifested realm of the real world that we're going to have to live in, and our children and grandchildren are going to have to live in, and making that a reality. It's not enough of an effort. It's not good enough of an effort. And if I came out and told you everybody's doing a great job, we just need to just press a little bit longer and we're all doing a great job and it's going to just all work out, it's going to be fine in the end, I'd be lying to you. That, number one, I'd be lying to myself. Okay. And that's infinitely worse than lying to anybody else. Okay. Yeah, lying to everybody else is bad, but guess what? When you start telling yourself complete bullshit stories and believe in them, you're of absolutely zero use to anybody. And anybody that's doing that and getting people to believe that the world is some other way than it is, and we're on some path that we're not really on, you're not only delusional yourself, you're pushing other people into your delusion.
Yes.
I don't tell people that this is as bad as it is because I want to discourage them and make them shut down. I want to encourage them to do more action toward creating the result that they say that they want, because their effort has not nearly been what it, not even close to what it needs to be to change this situation for the better. We are headed into abject slavery if we don't turn this ship around right quick. And I'm talking, we don't have 30, 40, 50 years into the future.
Oh my
You
God,
know,
no.
and I've been given these words of warning and trying to tell people things were going to get worse. Things are going to get worse. Look at what happened with COVID. Do you not think that that was probably the moment of choice that I was talking about? That we have to say no to this evil before they get like a billion people, before they inject a billion people with some poison that's going. Who knows how that's going to manifest in the future? We're already seeing how many people are dying from this. Imagine where this is going to go in 5 to 10 years. Imagine when they refine this and bring out that mRNA technology and refine it even deeper toward deeper genetic modification of humanity and the total expression of all kinds of different genetic problems and health problems. It is going to get so far worse than what it is that you're not going to want to live in this place. You're not going to want to be here at all. Living in it is going to be a torture. It's already beginning to be like that. And I'm telling people, just like I told you when I first started What on Earth is Happening, how bad it was going to get. Look at how bad it's gotten. I'm telling you, we're going to look back at this time period in history and we're going to say, boy, I wish I was back there. Boy, I wish I was back in lockdown. Boy, I was back when everybody was having the shot forced upon them, because look at how bad it is now. It's going to get that bad by comparison and worse than what I say.
Yes, and I mean, I don't know how much time you have, but I want to thank you again personally for everything. Your work is invaluable. A lot of people have, I mean, you influenced all this good stuff on a lot of people. I know you encounter some of them, but this work is invaluable, and I suggest everyone to go back and look at Mark Passio's work, because a natural law seminar is a must for everyone. I mean, this is where if you don't want to go and listen to all the podcasts, you go there. It's the place, and starting to really understand what natural law are, and imbue yourself with these principles, and they are life changing. I'm a living proof of that. So I thank you everyone for being there and share this stuff, share this information, because Mark Passio says, like, the way you're saying it, it's like always straight to the point, and this is why I love your work, because you're telling the things how it is, and this is we need more people who are doing the same job. We
Just
need, and the people who are listening there, it's your job too. It's your responsibility.
that's right.
So I
Just
mean,
go out and put it out there in a genuine way. Be your genuine self. Attempt to work on your inward fears and your inward hesitations to lose fear of going out and putting your voice out there. We need more voices speaking out. You
mhm,
can't just know this yourself and go like I'm okay cuz I know this stuff and just watch more and more and more and more. You got to put it back out there for others. It can't just be for me to do that work. We have to do this collectively. More and more people doing that will get more and more people interested. That's my main message to people. You got to take it into the realm of action yourself. You can't leave it externally to other people to do it. We need a myriad of voices and styles. Not everybody's going to take it from Mark Passio. Not everybody's going to take it from Fred. Not everybody's going to take it from just the creators on One Great Work Network. Everybody who understands this has to get involved and add their voice to the choir of truth. And then maybe we have a fighting chance to beat these globalist social engineer Satanists. Maybe we have a fighting chance to actually create a future that is based upon true freedom for ourselves and future generations of humanity to come.
yes. And by the way, before we go, I just want to tell you, I freaking love the founders. I
Oh,
like
thanks,
them
man.
very much, man.
Thanks. Can I
I
tell you
mean,
this? Just have to say this. The Founders EP, believe it or not, is the biggest selling thing on the What on Earth is Happening gift store. I've sold more of those things. You can't even imagine how many people have picked up one of those things. Like I'm shocked. It's like that EP has like gone quicker than my presentations. It's wild. I guess a lot of people like that style. I thought it was a fun thing. It was a fun band. I feel kind of bad. I talked with recently. I'll just tell you a little quick anecdote before we go. I recently, had a little housewarming party here at my new place, and I invited some of the members of the band, and some came out, basically really all but one, and who I guess was predisposed with other things that night. But like we reminisced about it and talked about it, and I wish we could get together and like just finish recording the songs that we had. We had 13 songs, only like 5 of them made it to the demo
mhm.
recording, the EP, which is like a demo. But we could have put out a beautiful 13-song album, which I was going to like put the 13 stars and like make each one of them represent a song, of the track listing, like the Stars of Old Glory or something. And it just never manifested. I would love to see that stuff recorded because I think we had even better songs than we did on the EP lined up in the pipeline. But at least we got that EP out. Maybe if the future is kind to us, maybe I could at least get those guys back into the studio and just get that 13-song album recorded and out there, and then let it be what it is from there. I would love to see that, but who knows? We'll see if the future contains that. But I thank you for saying that. I've gotten a lot of good feedback about the Founders Project. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of punk rock music, and
Yep.
I mean, these lyrics there. It's like
Yeah.
fist
They punch
raising
you in the
music. I'm
face.
like, oh my god, this
Yeah.
is so good. So,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Mark Passio, again, and thank you everyone who joined us tonight. And go on 100. It's right there. 100 is happening.com, and go see this incredible uh, 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 place for information, and go encourage Mark Passio. He has a gift part there. Also, nice t-shirts, music. We have a good punk band there, and go encourage them, and go on the let me get that out to the one great work network.com, and then go encourage the people there too, because there's like a bunch of people there who are very smart, and their implication into the occult and spirituality is incredible.
And
So
Fred, I just want to thank you for
yeah,
your contribution to One Great Work Network. Thank you for being one of our great content creators on the network and all the great content that you have created. And thank you for your contribution to the One Great Work at large. It's an encouragement to everyone.
thank you very much. So have a good evening, everyone. Take care. See you on the 10th with Francesco Sani from the One Great Word Network. Have a good night.